Welcome back, everybody. So recently I've read a lot of comments and had quite a few people tell me that they don't understand faction states, faction reputation, where to find it, and what affects these things. So I am putting together a multi-part guide to what's called the background simulation, or BGS. This is the first video in the series and is only going to go over the most basic of the concepts. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Okay, for the first question, where? The easy place to find a lot of this information is in your right-hand panel, under this tab, and here you can see their influence levels, active state, pending states, along with ones that are in the cooldown period. You can also find the same information on the mission board displayed in the top right corner as you switch between each faction. You can also find other helpful information in the system map, such as station ownership. As for what these things are, well, the easy way to explain it is that the background simulation is a system that dictates who is in control of a star system and what sort of economic state that system is in. Each inhabited system in the game has at least 2 factions in it. Most have anywhere between 4 and 7. Each of them trying to gain the highest influence in their respective systems. And the faction that has the highest influence controls the system. So now you're thinking, okay, so it's just a rat race to the highest influence. Where in the heck's the fun in that? Well, that's not strictly the case. Factions can have different government types, and each different type can affect inter-faction conflicts, local laws or absence of, availability of black markets, and other such things. As factions match each other's influence, they enter into what's called a conflict state that decides ownership of major assets in the system, such as planetary bases, outposts, or full-blown stations. And there are 3 different types of conflict states. There is civil war and war, and election. And war state is just that. Conflict zones appear in the system and only combat actions contribute to a faction's influence in a positive way. Civil war is the exact same thing. The only difference is its minimum duration is a little bit longer, and civil war can only happen between 2 factions that have their home system in the same place. The exact opposite to those is election. Election happens when 2 factions with a democratic government type enter into a conflict state. But in this state, combat and combat actions do not contribute. Only missions, trading profit, and exploration data do. So for you bounty hunters and conflict zone monkeys out there, this state is nowhere near as much fun for you guys. Both war and election states end once a single faction gets far enough ahead and stays there for a few days. If both factions stay close together in influence, the conflict state can last for a long time. In both cases, when the conflict state ends, the winning faction receives the most valuable asset from the losing one. If the losing faction doesn't even have an asset, then nothing happens, meaning that the conflict really doesn't accomplish anything. So does owning assets help with anything? Yes, most definitely yes. When a faction owns a station or a port, any trade profit made from that market or exploration data that's sold there positively contributes to the owning faction's influence, which makes it much easier for factions to maintain and gain influence. So what happens when a faction controls the system and has ownership of all major ports? That's it? They're done? The answer to that is no. Far from it, in fact. Once a faction reaches 75% influence in a system and holds it there for a few days, it triggers a state called expansion. During this phase, the faction loses a few percentage points of influence per day, but if it manages to hold its influence above that 75% threshold for the full duration, it will expand into the nearest inhabited system that has less than 7 factions in it, up to a maximum distance of 20 light years away. The faction can also expand from any of the systems that it's previously expanded into, which means that they can potentially spread through the entire bubble. So all this talk about raising and lowering influence, well, how do you actually do that? Well, the good news is there's a lot of different methods to do it. Doing missions for your chosen faction is the easiest, though definitely the more tedious way to go about things. Bounty hunting and trading are also good ways to do this, but there is a bit of a caveat to both of those, likewise for exploration data. Trading is only beneficial to whichever faction owns the station. Exploration data also falls under this category and has a limit. Exploration data stops counting towards positive influence when a total of 10 million credits worth has been sold, which honestly that's quite a bit. So the long and short of the whole thing is, if the faction you want to support doesn't own the station you're going to, it's best to find another way. Bounty hunting is also another way that people raise a faction's influence in a system, but the faction you want to support has to already be in control of the system. Otherwise, most of the bounties that you're going to be collecting are going to come from the wrong faction and end up hurting the influence that you're trying to raise. So what do you do if your faction doesn't own a station or isn't in control of the system? Missions. Lots and lots of missions. There are other methods as well, but those are going to be covered in another video as they are a touch more advanced and require a more in-depth explanation than what I'm going into in this video. Also, as I said earlier, this is only part 1 of 4, so keep an eye out for the others. The next one, I'm going to explain faction reputation and how that ties in with BGS. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I will see you all next time.